Hi, everyone. We're going to get started in just a moment, giving some people more time to join. Emmett, I think you can begin whenever you like.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you everyone who is attending. I appreciate you being here and taking a little bit of time out of your lunch. I'll avoid eating my sandwich until after we're done today, so make it a little more presentable. My name is Emmett Pepper. I'm a policy director for Energy Efficient West Virginia, which is one of the member organizations for the West Virginians for Energy Freedom Coalition. I'll be joined today by Kai-Chen Yeoh, who's a partner at Echelon Insights, who conducted a statewide poll. She'll be able to talk more about that. Also Gary Zuckett, who is the co-director at West Virginia Citizen Action Group, which is also a member organization of West Virginians for Energy Freedom Coalition, who will walk through our new launched today Ratepayers Bill of Rights. We'll have an opportunity for questions at the end, but if there are clarifying questions that come up during this, you can certainly add those to the chat. Without any further ado, I'll hand things over to Kai-Chen.
All right, thanks, Emmett. So we're going to dig in a little into our recent survey of 500 registered voters in West Virginia. We conducted this for a better understanding of current public perceptions of energy costs and a variety of different energy sources in the state. So when we dig into some of our key takeaways, next slide. We find that voters in West Virginia hold favorable views of pretty much all energy sources. All energy sources are above water and have net positive views among voters in West Virginia. And specifically on solar and coal, nearly identical proportions hold favorable and unfavorable views of both solar and coal, with coal coming out just slightly ahead. And we find throughout the survey that West Virginia voters are ultimately extremely pragmatic and extremely cost-driven when it comes to the decision that they make on energy sources. They don't have a deep attachment to coal if it will cost them more. And we find that supermajorities say they're unwilling to pay any amount more for an alternative energy source, whether that be coal or renewables. A majority, 2/3, say that they would consider switching to solar if it would save them money, and that includes a majority of Republicans, 54%, saying they would consider switching to solar if it saves them money. We also find that West Virginians underestimate renewables energy's share of power in the state. Just 3 in 10 voters correctly say that between 5 to 10% of West Virginia's power comes from renewable or sustainable sources. However, a majority, 60% of voters say that the share from renewable or sustainable sources should be increased, while only 10% want it lower. So we can dig into some of the numbers here. And next slide. So when we asked West Virginia voters to think broadly about a range of different energy sources, whether or not they have favorable or unfavorable opinions of each of these energy sources. We see that West Virginia voters hold favorable views of pretty much every energy source. The highest proportion, 80%, say they hold favorable views of natural gas. And if we zero in on the coal and solar bars, we can see that they look very, very similar. Very, very similar proportions hold favorable views of both coal and solar, with coal just inching very slightly ahead on favorability. But when it comes to perceptions of coal and solar, next slide. We see that a plurality of West Virginia voters believe that solar is more expensive than coal. We just asked, of these two energy sources, which do you think is more expensive, solar or coal? And we find 47% saying they think solar is more expensive versus 33% who think coal is more expensive. 29% think solar is much more expensive. Slightly more voters without a college degree think that solar is more expensive. And a majority of Republicans, 56%, say they think solar is more expensive than coal, with the proportion shifting towards thinking that coal is more expensive than solar as you move further left on the political spectrum. And these perceptions are especially important because, next slide, we see that cost is really the biggest motivating factor when it comes to what West Virginians are going to choose when it comes to energy. We asked both, how much more would you be willing to pay for coal-powered electricity if it were shown to be more expensive than renewable energy like solar or wind? And how much more would you be willing to pay for renewable energy if it were shown to be more expensive than coal-powered electricity? And in either direction, we find over 2/3 saying I would not be willing to pay any amount more for either coal or renewables. So that 47% who believe that solar is more expensive than coal, if given a choice between the two, they are going to opt for the less expensive option, regardless of whether that's coal or renewables. So when it comes to, next slide, perceptions of the share of renewable power in West Virginia, we asked voters, just based on what you know, what percentage of West Virginia's power generation do you think comes from renewable sources? We find that a majority say that the share of renewables in West Virginia is 10% or lower, just 30% correctly selecting that it's 5 to 10% of West Virginia power that comes from renewables. And when told that 7% of West Virginia's power generation comes from sustainable or renewable sources, 60% of West Virginia voters say that the share of power from renewables should be higher. Just 10% say that should be lower. Now, that support for more energy from renewables cuts across party lines. Next slide. And across the political spectrum, we find that more voters say that renewables should be a higher proportion of West Virginia's power generation than lower, while, of course, the highest proportion of Democrats say that it should be higher. This is also among Republicans. 46% of Republicans say that more of West Virginia's power should come from sustainable or renewable sources versus just 24% who say it should be lower. So when it comes to the general state landscape, we find that a plurality of West Virginia voters feel the state is off on the wrong track. 49% say West Virginia is headed on the wrong track, 30% right direction. More Democrats feel West Virginia is headed on the wrong track, whereas Republican voters are evenly divided on each side. But despite these differences by party, when it comes to, next slide, the Public Service Commission of West Virginia voters are united across party lines in strong disapproval of how the Public Service Commission of West Virginia is regulating services and rates. Across the board, regardless of education level or party, over 6 in 10 voters say that they disapprove of how the Public Service Commission of West Virginia, which regulates services and rates of public utilities, is doing its job. And about 4 in 10 voters, regardless of party or education, strongly disapprove of how the Public Service Commission is doing its job. And this strong disapproval is partially rooted, next slide, in how much West Virginia voters are focused on lowering electricity bills. We asked voters, which of the following do you feel is the most important issue that West Virginians are facing? And we asked this upfront right at the beginning of the survey. So before we mention anything about electricity costs or different energy sources, and upfront, West Virginians are most likely to say that the state's most important issue is creating new jobs, improving education, or lowering electricity bills. And notably, among Republican voters and among Trump voters, lowering electricity bills is viewed as just as important as creating new jobs. Democrats over-index on focus on improving education, but West Virginians overall are extremely focused on lowering electricity bills along with job creation and education, especially on the right. Next slide. And that focus on lowering electricity bills unites West Virginians across the political spectrum on saying that it is important that West Virginia supports policies that make it easier for customers to reduce their bills through renewable energy and more efficient use of energy. That includes 64% of Republicans and 69% of Democrats, very similar proportions, saying it is extremely important for the state to support policies that reduce energy bills through renewable energy and more efficient use of energy. So to sum things up, next slide. We find again and again that West Virginia voters are very focused on whatever is going to lower their electricity bills. Which is a top 3 issue in West Virginia. They won't pay a premium for either coal or renewables. They will opt for whichever source is cheaper. We find 65% disapprove of the Public Service Commission that handles energy prices. And that focus on lower energy prices was both among the top issues by West Virginians overall, and especially among West Virginia voters on the right, as well as in both urban and rural areas. When you pair the strong focus on lowering electricity prices with the fact that 3 in 5 voters believe that the share of renewables in West Virginia's grid should be higher, there is clearly an opportunity for something new.
Thank you, Ka-Chin. Yeah, just to kind of react on a couple of those things there. The point that there is no issue more important to the Republican voters than lowering electric bills was very strong, and we saw that through a lot of the discussions in the legislative session. However, it was just discussions. The legislature did nothing to lower electric bills in the most recent session, even for the mammoths that we heard about, the low-income ratepayers on fixed incomes. The president is proposing to eliminate low-income energy assistance programs in his budget that is still pending, which is different from the big bill everybody's talking about right now. And AEP, Appalachian Power for half the state, is the electric utility for half the state is planning to end its contributions to the Dollar Energy Fund, which is something that helps ratepayers avoid disconnection. They did not propose anything meaningful that would help low-income ratepayers. So there's a stark contrast there between what Republican voters want and what's being proposed. A couple more points. There's a false perception that solar energy is more expensive than coal. So that was interesting, just a factual inaccuracy. Bipartisan support for renewables to lower electric bills. And I think the takeaway is that the people just want cheaper bills. They don't care how, they don't care why. So they support an all of the above strategy, not what we sometimes see in the state. It seems like in the state legislature, where there's litmus tests for supporting the most politically connected energy sources. So now moving on to Gary Zuckett, who will be speaking about the Ratepayers Bill of Rights that we're launching.
Thank you, Emmett, and I want to thank the folks that are watching us today and friends in the media. And I am Gary Zuckett. I'm co-director of West Virginia Citizen Action. Citizen Action is one of the member organizations of West Virginians for Energy Freedom. And we are happy to announce today the rolling out of our Ratepayers Bill of Rights. It's a set of 8 core principles designed to put power back where it belongs with the people who pay the bills. These rights are about fairness, transparency, and accountability, especially at a time when families and businesses across our state are feeling the pressure of rising utility costs. Seems like every other month, one of the utilities is going to the PSC for a rate hike. So let's walk through what's included. Number 1, fair and reasonable rates. Everyone deserves utility bills that reflect the true cost of service, not inflated charges, padded with unnecessary expenses. So we're looking for limits on how often and how much rates can increase. We'd like to see public hearings in different parts of the state before there are any hikes in service areas where those hikes would be made. And we'd like to see continued discounts for low and fixed income households especially during weather crises or hot or cold. And this speaks directly to that concern that you just heard about in the survey for lowering electric bills. It also reflects the deep dissatisfaction with how utilities push costs onto the public without accountability. Next. And we'd like the right to reliable and safe service. Ratepayers expect the lights to come on and the heat to work. This section would require utilities to invest in grid resilience, respond quickly to outages, and diversify their energy mix to avoid price spikes and service disruptions. With weather-related blackouts becoming more frequent, voters support measures that make our grid more dependable and cost stable. Next. Next is the right to transparent and accurate billing. Our bills should be clear and not a puzzle to be worked out. This right would ensure itemized charges with no hidden fees, access to our energy usage history, and prompt corrections if there are errors, and there are some errors out there. So let's get those fixed. Transparency in billing is one way to really restore public confidence in this whole process. Next, the right to fair disconnection protections. No one should lose service without due process, especially during extreme heat, cold, or hardship. This section calls for 30 days notice before dislocation or disconnection, multiple contact attempts, and alternative like income-based payment plans. There's really a lot more that could be done in this area to keep low-income households from being disconnected. And this is especially vital for seniors and medically vulnerable people and families facing unexpected emergencies in these uncertain times. Next is the right to energy assistance and efficiency. People need access to programs that help them save, whether through subsidies or upgrades. This right would include easier access to LIHEAP, weatherization, and utility efficiency programs, flexible payment plans to prevent seasonal spikes, as you saw, the voters overwhelmingly support policies that reduce bills through renewables and efficiency, regardless of policy affiliation. We all want to see lower energy costs. Next. And renewable access to renewable energy is important too. Every West Virginian should be able to power their home from the sun if they choose. It means continued protection for net metering, the ability to join or create local solar projects, we call those community solar projects, and the right to choose our energy providers, either a utility, a neighborhood project, or a local collaborative group. The polling shows broad support for solar, especially when it saves money. Most voters would switch to community solar if given the opportunity, because basically it stabilizes rate hikes and provides less expensive power. Next. The right to fair representation and dispute resolution. When there's a problem, ratepayers deserve a real advocate. This right includes fair complaint processes, a truly independent consumer advocate focused on lowering bills, a public service commission that does reflect the diversity and interests of all ratepayers. Next, the right to public participation and engagement. West Virginians want to be heard, not shut out. This means accessible in-person and online hearings, better notification when rate hikes are proposed, and annual public reports on utility burdens and performance. The public is hungry for transparency and input. This provision ensures they get both. And in closing, I'd like to say that this Ratepayers Bill of Rights is not just a policy document. It's a line in the sand that says we won't accept being overcharged, shut out, or ignored any longer. That we really need a significant change in the way our utilities are regulated and monitored here in West Virginia, and the way that we access our power here in West Virginia. And you can get more information at the energyfreedomwv.org website right there. And I'd also like to say that tomorrow we'll be calling on regulators, lawmakers, and utilities to adopt these rights with a public reading of these Ratepayers Bill of Rights at the state capitol, front of the state capitol at noon. So you're invited to come out there for our town crier, who will be reading the Bill of Rights. And I believe Emmett's going to open it up for questions now.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Tomorrow we will have someone in colonial garb reading the Ratepayers Bill of Rights with an actual scroll, and should be great visuals for both TV and any kind of print or any kind of online visuals that you provide to your audiences. And just a couple of takeaways from that. I mean, these rights reflect both the results from the polling, as Gary very well laid out, but also feedback that we've gotten from our coalition and from our organizations in our coalition that we hear all the time. Some of these things, unfortunately, became, we've been working on and honing this for some time now, and unfortunately became more relevant. LIHEAP comes to mind, where that was something we never thought was even in danger, but we knew how important it was, and unfortunately now it is in danger. Most of these things in the Bill of Rights are to some extent in state code or partially being addressed, but all of them need improvements. And so yes, this lays out what we think needs to be addressed. And if you have any questions, you can raise your hand. Chris, do you have the ability to?
Yeah, Mike, you can go ahead.
Hi, Mike Tony from the Gazette Mail. Thanks for taking the time to do this. I just wanted to ask, there was a column the PSC recently published by Chairman Lane that extolled coal, saying that the administration, the Trump administration and the Morrissey administration, are committed to promoting coal as a domestic energy source, and praising them for that, and saying, quote, as far as electric power is concerned, we will remain energy independent long into the future as long as we rely on what underlies our mountains, and with that, the lights will remain on. End quote. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the the PSC chairman in the middle of significant electric rate hike cases from Appalachian and Willing Power, um, kind of weighing in favor of coal, and whether you see the PSC as embracing the, kind of all of the above low cost, um, energy approach that the polling seems to favor.
Well, we certainly hope that they do. And I think that we, in the previous case for when net metering, which is a key policy for solar production, people who have solar panels on their homes, net metering is important, as I know you know, Mike, and I think most of the folks on this call know. The commission came out with a really endorsed a really reasonable compromise last year for half of the state. There is not a settlement in this case for the other half of the state for AEP's utilities, but we think that the reasonable compromise in the last case could be the right blueprint for going forward in this part of the state, so that it's a consistent methodology for for how net metering works in the state, and that would certainly support individuals going solar. I think that the polling reflects that people don't really have loyalty to anything other than their bills going down. So I hope that all policymakers, the ones in the legislature, the commission, Energy Authority, the Office of Energy, anybody involved takes a hard look at this and is clear that the guiding star, the polar star, is what's going to help people reduce their costs. I don't know if others have thoughts too, but
I believe
like
Leo would like to jump in.
Yeah, I would. Thanks, everybody. I'd also like to just add a little bit more in response to Mike's question, if I may. My name is Leah Turgeon. I'm the state director with Solar United Neighbors. And I think we've highlighted a lot of really great things that have been retained in the Ratepayer Bill of Rights. And I just kind of wanted to say, utilities are making the future more expensive, and West Virginians can't afford it. We're facing projected load growth of about 78% over the next 25 years, and lead times for new gas turbines are between 5 and 7 years. And we saw from the polling that West Virginians would support community solar and other distributed energy resources should they have the option to participate in those programs. And these distributed energy resources, or DERs, can be deployed basically right now. Like, we have the technology, all we need is the go ahead, and we can help stabilize the grid and lower costs for consumers. So for really an all of the above energy state, then we need to allow and enable these programs.
Yeah, I'd like to add a few comments too, and welcome Curtis Tate to the mix here too. See, he just popped up. And I believe this has been recorded, Curtis, so you might be able to review it later. But yeah, we really do need a true all of the above energy strategy for West Virginia. Coal used to be the least expensive way to generate electricity if you don't count the hidden costs, the environmental costs, the climate costs, the human health costs. But now, even in the open market, natural gas is less expensive, solar is less expensive, even though, as the survey that Kai Chen shared with us, said that a lot of West Virginians think that solar is actually more expensive than coal, which is incorrect. So we really do need a true, a fair playing field for the energy mix here in West Virginia that would include community solar. I think there's a basic fairness issue uh, out there right now with this big push towards luring in these huge data centers and giving them free reign to build their own microgrids out of whatever energy source they desire. When local communities, don't have the ability to put up solar panels in a vacant lot and start a community solar arrangement here. I think that's a really skewed set of priorities.
Thank
Curtis?
you. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Mike, if you have a follow-up.
I was just going to quickly follow up and ask, in that same vein, Appalachian Power and Willing Power have said in their pending rate case that they've acknowledged that their high dependence on coal increases their exposures to regulatory risk, and that's a concern from a credit rating perspective. Moody's has observed that the heavy reliance on the coal industry for employment is a concern as the industry competes with gas and is anticipated to decline over time due to a shift toward cleaner energy. How should ratepayers think about that in terms of affordability and what kind of bills they have and how they what their rights are from this Bill of Rights perspective that you're framing.
I'll take a first stab at it, but others have things they want to say. I think that there's from the polling, very clear results that say that ratepayers already believe that there needs to be a diversity of sources and that we should follow what's going to be most cost effective, and and the Bill of Rights also kind of dovetailing with that. People need to be able to take control of their own energy bills themselves through becoming more efficient, and then going solar, those sorts of things. So, if others have things they want to chime in about. If not, Curtis, you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Emma. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So my inbox has been blowing up these past several minutes because the Senate passed the one big bill. Its beauty is perhaps a bit subjective, um, and there were some last minute changes that maybe made the impact on renewables not so draconian. They're not going to be taxed, for example, but most of the tax credits are going away, including for rooftop solar, and a much shorter runway for the utility scale stuff. It appears. So, just wondering if anybody has thoughts on what the implications are of this policy change at the federal level for all these things that we've been discussing.
Leah or Gary, I don't have any thoughts on that.
No, well, I think it's a definite step backwards when we're cutting support for renewable energy and at the same time loosening environmental regulations on fossil energy. I think it's the wrong direction for us to be taking as a nation, plain and simple.
Yeah, I would agree with Gary. I think that we've seen the impact of, the IRA, clean energy related based incentives and how they've landed here in West Virginia. We've seen it spur economic development. Our solar developers are doing millions of dollars in contracts and bringing clean energy savings to, both residential and commercial customers in West Virginia. But it's a long time been called the solar coaster, and so I think that while it's definitely a step back, it's also an opportunity for us to just really get back to the drawing board as a solar industry and figure out ways to continue to build our a more equitable energy system with clean energy as a part of it. Solar isn't going anywhere. And like I said, it's just an opportunity for folks to come up with more innovative ways.
Okay, any other questions from reporters on the line? I think that
we will be sending the slides, both sets of slides to participants here through your email account. So watch your email after this is over.
Okay, if there are no further questions, then we can wrap up. Feel free to email us afterwards, or if you have follow-up that you think of later. And otherwise, we're appreciate the opportunity. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.